Hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you, Jason?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm late. I'm late.
He's late. We apologize for the little bit of lateness. But you know what? Eventprof Live hashtag. This is what's happening.
Hmm.
Everything has started back again. But welcome to 20 Minutes Eventprofs Weekly Live with myself and my buddy at Event Dad, Jason Greenman.
Hello, hello.
So, for those of you who are watching, first of all, thank you for joining us. This is streaming live on LinkedIn as well as on YouTube. So if you miss it, you can always catch up here on LinkedIn as a replay or on my channel, YouTube, at Hot Hospitality Exchange. And of course, on Akomo's channel as well once they upload it after the stream. But yeah, if you are joining us, say hello, let us know where you're
Hey, what's
joining us
up?
from. And we're excited to have you here. And of course, if you have any questions along the way or any feedback, then drop it in the comments as well. So obviously, um, events are back. The
Yeah,
industry is rapidly back.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. Let's say that. I'm getting a lot of interest. We'll see how many of those things come to fruition, but the
Mhm.
interest and the demand is 100% there. So, um, I apologize. That has to do with me being late today, guys. I'm late anyway, and then on top, like,
Exactly. You're in Spain. It just comes with the
exactly,
territory, right? It's
exactly.
like siesta, all
Like
of
a
that good
15
stuff.
minute buffer around
It's
everything,
it's
minimum.
like it's like inshallah, give or take 15
Exactly.
minutes. We'll turn out,
Here,
right?
I invite people over for like a barbecue or something, and you really don't expect them to show up at 11. Like, if you say we're having a barbecue at 11, that means come around 12, 12:30.
There you go. See?
So, yeah.
So this is all learning point. Next time I'm gonna set up the stream for like 11:15. So you turn up at 11 and then we're
I
good.
like that. I like that.
I
And
think that's a good way to go.
schedule in my tardiness. Nice.
Exactly, exactly. We learn. We're evolving as event profs and as
Right.
like a duo. So
That's right.
Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, so I thought we could talk a little bit first initially about kind of all things event profs, like what's been
Cool.
happening, what's been going on,
Hmm.
in kind of the industry. So obviously there's a lot of hype and everything behind IMAX Vegas, which is happening. Is it next week? I think it's next week already,
Let's
right?
have a look.
I think
MX
it's next week or the week
Vegas.
after.
Looks like
No, it's
October.
week
No,
after.
November
So
9th.
it's in two
Week after.
weeks.
Yep. Hmm.
Exactly. So lots of buzz, lots of hype. So things that I've seen that are happening. There's going to be a panel of very awesome female event profs that are going to be speaking at IMAX Vegas. One of which is Juliet Tripp. She's going to be speaking.
Nice.
And also Deanna is going to be speaking,
Oh,
Camille,
cool.
as well on the same stage. And I believe they are going to be broadcasting that to the virtual audience as well. So this is really cool. They are going to
Cool.
be broadcasting some of their content sessions. So if you're not attending IMAX Vegas, but you're interested in kind of delving into the content, I believe this is part of their IMAX Buzz initiative that they're launching.
Hmm.
So if you're part of that hive, you get to access some of the content and all the some of the activities that are happening at the show virtually, no
Cool.
matter where you are. So if you're not in Vegas, so that's interesting. You're interested to find out more, then of course, head to the IMAX website to check out exactly what they're up to and what all those details are. I believe Event Tech Live UK is next week.
Okay.
And that's taking place at a venue. It's going to be a proper hybrid event. There's
Hmm.
going to be an in-person audience attending. I am one of the judges. I've put in all my votes. Everything is done. Everything is set. Let's see who wins. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing night.
Yep.
And I will be kind of trying to join virtually as well if I can. And let's see what else. What else is happening, Jason, in the world of events? Like, what's happening in Spain? Like, tell us what's happening, like that you're seeing coming up on your feed.
No, the I'll be honest with you that I have had my
I
head
don't know.
down between having a 6-week-old baby and kind of the return of demand. It's been intense. I have not. I think probably nobody's noticed, but I haven't even really been on socials. I'm going
You've been
totally
on
against
Twitter. You have been on
everything. I
Twitter.
have been on Twitter. That's true. Yeah,
I'll give
that's
you that
because
much. You have
that's
been on
easy,
Twitter.
nice. That's like easy, nice little texting. Um,
Exactly.
don't follow my lead. I think that's like the marketing that's the marketing advice from me right now. But
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think the main thing in Spain right now is I'm in Barcelona anyway. Is getting ready for the one that's coming up in November. Uh,
IBTM.
IBTM,
Yes.
exactly. So I know they're trying to get a lot of buzz, a lot of people involved with that. So I mean, I'll be there. You'll be there. I think we're going to be planning to do a stream on site together as well.
We are.
So I'm
So if you
excited.
want
I've always
myself or exactly, if you want myself or Jason to pay you a visit on your stand,
true.
get in touch because
Yeah,
we're going to be there. We can run around the show and do some promos and hype.
yeah.
So, if you are watching and you're interested and you're a supplier, destination, hotel, whatever, you have a a booth,
Hmm.
and you've got some exciting stuff happening, then do let us know.
Right.
But also, Robert, thanks for joining us, Robert. He is saying that IMEX is doing a daily catch up from the show studio floor,
Cool.
which is very cool. And he's going to be at IBTM as well. I'm
In
very
Vegas,
excited to meet Robert face to
IBTM. Ah,
face.
okay. He says
Yeah, so
IMEX.
he's
Oh
coming to
no. Okay, I
Barcelona,
gotcha.
so
I
we
gotcha.
can
Oh,
all
cool.
meet up. We should
Nice.
totally do like a face to face reunion, don't you
I don't
think?
know if I'm ready for that.
I know.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a
I
cool
think we're
idea.
gonna, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
We should just rent like a little restaurant, somewhere
Mhm.
and have tapas all together. I think it's
I
a
love
great
it.
idea.
Yeah.
Keep it open up. Like,
All right.
we'll figure that out. So stay tuned if you want to be part of that group. If you are going to IBTM, please get in touch with myself or Jason. We would love to meet everyone that we've been speaking to virtually this last 2 years. Like, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
So get in touch with us. But yeah, on that side of things, that's kind of what I've been seeing that's been happening in the industry. But
Mm.
today on the show, we thought we would talk about the evolution of event moderation
Mm.
because, to be honest, I think between the two of us, we've experienced all manner of event
Mhm.
moderation. Isn't that right? So,
Absolutely.
let's start at the top, right?
Yeah.
What we all used to kind of know event moderation as, which was your basic event, in-person event, you're on a stage, you're
Mhm.
moderating.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the traditional event moderation in that sense was.
Yeah. It was
Um,
an MC, right? The
it was an
person, the
MC and
host,
a
that's
host.
standing in front of everybody and just kind of making sure the agenda is this is what's coming up next. Does a little bit of make sure that the flow of the conversation on stage goes well, right? But in person.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And now that whole thing has evolved. The last year we really moved into the space of virtual moderation, and it became something essential, especially for the larger, more curated, programmed, customized, and produced virtual events. The role of a moderator was something that was definitely really, really key and very important.
Hmm.
And I think that, at the beginning, people didn't realize it. But as we were starting to get into, the flow of the content being everything, and how do we organize the speakers, and how do we break it all up? And that's when people started to realize, no, we actually do need to have virtual event moderators,
Yeah.
Which I started doing. I think my first virtual event moderation gig was Event MB's, I think their second virtual event, where I
Hmm.
co-moderated alongside Julia Solaris.
Yep.
And then I continued to do, I think, four more of their events.
Hmm.
And yeah, to me, it I was very scared at the beginning because I'd never done anything like it.
Mm.
Um, But once I did it, it was like, oh, this is awesome. And it was just a different, I guess, revenue stream and
Hmm.
possibility of work for someone
Mm.
in my field, right?
Yeah.
And for anyone like us that's interested or is able to do it, I say
Hmm.
confidently, and kind of be on camera and kind of take on that role.
Mm.
So that was really cool. You did also some virtual moderation, no? Also for your clients,
Hmm.
I want to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, for sure. I mean, um, I think what happened is everything got thrown into the virtual space, as we know,
Yeah,
and there was a clear mm, there's a clear line between those people who were comfortable being on camera and those who were not so much.
yeah,
And I think I saw that. How do we say this? It's like, because what we're really talking about is the evolution. So, like, when you needed a moderator for in-person events 2 years ago,
yeah,
you needed somebody had very good stage presence, was very, a good talking, but they were already mic'd up. They had all the tech kind of given to them
yeah,
to be ready to go on stage and do their thing. And the evolution into the digital space meant that suddenly that tech was not just given to people in most cases. There's cases where it was, but you
yeah.
needed somebody that had a good setup at home. They have good audio, good video, good lighting. They understand how to work with a camera, because working with a camera is much different than working with an audience. It's very
Correct.
weird to be standing here. there's, there's nobody here, right? And you're
Exactly.
performing for this little camera right here. But
Yeah,
there's people who are
exactly.
very good at doing that,
Yeah.
and it's so important because, as we all know, engagement is what is missing from these virtual events. You have to keep people entertained and interested in this video, and having somebody that can
Come
thread
out of the
together.
screen and engage,
Exactly,
right? You
exactly.
need almost like a bigger than life personality to kind of capture and hold that attention, or at
Totally.
least
Yeah.
be that bridge, I think,
Yeah.
in the virtual
Exactly.
space.
Exactly. So it's a slightly different skill set. I think there's a lot of crossover. Probably the people who do this well in person can also do it well virtually,
Yeah.
but it's a slightly different skill set. And as we've seen, it's a different set of people. Sometimes the people who were, a lot of the people doing the virtual moderation
Hmm.
were not doing it in real life before. So it's been an interesting transition. And I think it's something that, ironically, sometimes some of these virtual events, people remember the moderator sometimes more than the speakers, because
Yeah.
they're kind of the person that's going on this journey with you through the event. They're at the beginning. They're
Yeah.
guiding you through the next steps. They're making jokes. They're trying to keep people engaged, and it's so important to have a good virtual moderator, because that's the person that's going to really be making sure that the whole group, the whole pack, gets from point A to point Z of your event together and are entertained and everybody's happy, and the information's clear and everybody knows
Yeah.
what's going on. So yeah, I think it's been really interesting space to watch, and it's not done. I think we're still at
And
the very,
evolve.
very beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're very right about that. And I think, virtual events are obviously are not going away. And I think what's been really interesting to see is that evolution of people moving into virtual event moderation and evolving in that space and picking up the skills that you need to pick up, but also realizing what those things are. What are the
Mm.
nuances within that field that are different? Okay,
Mhm.
when you're in front of a live audience, there's certain things that you would do that you wouldn't necessarily do in front of a virtual audience. You
Right.
would do different things.
Mhm.
There are things, there's tech that you might have to learn how to use, like
Mhm.
so much event tech now that has been created, like, and used within virtual events, like Slido and
Mhm.
engagement tools. And,
Mhm.
oh, now we're going to do a word map. So tell me
Mhm.
where you're from. Everyone type it in the chat, and
Yeah.
then you got to relay that information
Mhm.
to the audience, right? Because a
Mm.
lot of what virtual moderation is essentially is, like, I always say this, it's like being a TV anchor woman,
Yeah.
or anchor person, and you're kind of feeding back what you're seeing to the
Yep.
general public, and that are watching this event. So you're in this really pivotal space. So yeah, it is important, and it's equally. And like you mentioned with regards to the speakers, I thought that was really
Mm.
interesting because it's so true. It really is so true. And it makes a real difference when you have a virtual moderator that's actually taken the time to reach out to the speakers
Mm,
beforehand, gotten to know roughly what the session's going to be about, the flow,
yep.
when to ask the questions, what are the
Hmm.
things that are going to be like kind of the touch points that we're going to pass through the session that you're going to keep note of, and which are the parts to ask the audience and whatnot. Go down that path of preparation,
Yep.
because that is so evidently clear when you have done that versus when you haven't done that, because it can get
Hmm.
so awkward. So
Yeah.
prep is everything. Like, obviously tech prep is very important. You got to go through the motions, and god, that's a whole different ball game when it comes to virtual events, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Timing that little man or woman in your
Hmm.
ear that is talking to you whilst you are
While you're
trying to
talking.
virtually
Yeah.
moderate
Hmm.
as well.
Hmm. Yep.
Like, Serena, you've got 2 minutes, and then you got to like not get interrupted by this person in your ear. That's a whole skill set on its own, because that breaks a lot of things. This is really
Yeah.
interesting. So when I was in Brussels last week,
Hmm.
doing another form of moderation, which we're going to talk about, it was really interesting that there was an actual virtual event moderator on the stage,
Hmm.
in the studio. And the one thing that he said to the tech team in his ear, the production team, was, guys, when I'm reading my cue cards out, like if I'm reading a bio, if I'm reading something, don't say anything. Wait
Mm.
till I've stopped reading, right?
Okay.
Because he literally can't, he can't read and listen at the same time. So I thought that was
Yeah.
really interesting, because again, if you're in the space of virtual event moderation, there's a lot of information that you become,
Hmm.
you get, that you
Yep.
have to learn how to do. But don't be scared to tell the production guys and the team, like behind the scenes, what you need, because
Yeah.
that's equally as important.
Yeah. And they want
If
to
you
know.
need, yeah,
Yeah.
they got to know. If you need better sound, if you need better equipment, if you
Mm.
need what's that, points where they need to nudge you or give
Mm.
you countdowns, like, guys, I work better when I know 2 minutes out, this session is
Mhm.
going to end, give me 2 minutes, or how
Yeah.
you need to work out all those cues, because that is so important in the
Mhm.
world of virtual moderation.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that I've realized as well.
Mm.
um, and my little bonus tip is, try to get props, right? Like, props are the best. I don't have props here now, like, but like during swap card I had bubbles, and
Mhm.
people love the bubbles,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like they know
Yeah.
it was fun. Like, I had Lego today. This is a Lego
Nice.
heart
I
my
like
son
it.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
But this might be
Yeah.
something people
Yeah.
remember from this one session,
Yeah.
that I was
Okay.
holding a little Lego heart. But it's a prop,
Yeah.
but
Well,
super important.
it's like, and I know like we keep banging on about the same thing, but like the difference between, for me, like there's a big difference between the in-person events and a virtual event, because when you have people in an in-person event, you've locked them in a room and they have no choice but to pay attention, right?
Correct.
So like, but in the virtual space, they're one tab away from ignoring your event. And so
Yeah.
you need to have engaging moderators that are going to be entertaining. They're going to do like random things, like start blowing bubbles, whatever it is, like just be, but things that are going to keep people paying attention, because you don't have the convenience of having your audience locked in a room with you,
Yeah.
like, and so it's really really important to have these little extras. People are going to bring that extra spice to the moderation, because it really, I mean, you could have great speakers, you could have a great thing, but if your moderator is off, a lot of that kind of goes to waste. So
Absolutely.
it's been really really fascinating to watch, and I'm excited about the virtual event moderating space, because I think it's going to
Yeah.
continue to grow, and people are going to realize how necessary it is, because there's a lot of skills that are behind making it work. And I know, just like transitioning to what you were saying, because I want to hear more about what you just came off of.
Yeah.
We've kind of talked about like the in-person, and now we've talked about the virtual event moderation. And now, as we're going back to, some people are moving towards the hybrid. Like we said,
Hmm.
this isn't only going to be hybrid in the future, but there are quite a few events that are experiencing, they want to incorporate hybrid.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the type of moderation you just did and the vocabulary you used, and I'm gonna start hitting you with some questions because I'm
Absolutely. I
curious.
think before that, we should also talk about the hybrid moderation bit, right? Because you
Okay.
and me both were involved in the digital disruptor event.
Hmm.
You were the virtual moderator for that specific one, which is what we just talked about in terms of, that variation. And I was an actual hybrid moderator, meaning I
Hmm.
was actually in person at the event, and I was the bridge between, Sean Kanungo and
Hmm.
Duncan
Duncan.
Wardle, who
Hmm.
are tuning in from somewhere else in the world. And
Yeah.
I was feeding back everything that was happening in person at the event back to them. And
Hmm.
that was a really cool experience and a very different experience as well, because again, you're blending having a real audience that you're having to engage and interact with, but also you're having to engage and interact and be that bridge between the virtual speakers and your own audience. And one thing that I really learned about that in during that experience is just you're always on camera. So be very, very wary of that. You're
Yeah.
always on camera. They can switch to you at any point. Um, and a lot of that engagement that comes from the in-person audience,
Mm.
you might think that they're stimulated and they're motivated and they're inspired a lot by the virtual speaker, but a
Yep.
lot of that is also on you. Like, you need to go around and you need to find people to answer questions and get people going. So that's like an extra level when it comes to hybrid moderation. I think you got to really um, feel the audience and then feed that energy back to the
Mm.
virtual speakers and the crowd.
Hmm.
Um, so fundamentally, that for me was the difference between the virtual side and the hybrid side.
Mm.
And let's not even talk about me being in the metaverse. That would just blew my
Right.
mind completely. Like, that was super cool. That was, I
Hmm.
guess, that was like, that's interesting because that's a different variation to virtual moderation, right?
Hmm.
Instead
Yeah.
of you being in your room and
Right.
out to a virtual audience, you're actually sitting, you're in a metaverse space,
Mm.
and you've got screens, and that was something super cool. And I do think that is the future. Like, that is going to continue,
Mm.
and that's how it's going to evolve, the virtual moderation space.
Mm.
So you getting used to being in a green screen and not really realizing anything around you and being able to
Mm.
work with that is going to be super important.
Mm.
um, but yeah, last week is the third strand of evolution of moderation, which I was part of, which was hyper moderation. I was a hyper moderator. So, what's your question, Jason?
What in the heck is a hyper moderator? Let's
Okay.
start there. Let's define it, right?
So this was something actually that I had never heard of as well until I was approached to actually do the role. I had a client who said there's going to be a moderator for this event, and you would be a hyper moderator. And I was like, wow, what is a hyper moderator? And basically, a hyper moderator is a separate person that you have in the studio or in your environment, in the virtual event or hybrid or in-person event, that is relaying back everything that is happening on your social media channels. So in this event in particular, there was a studio, and there was so it basically was like an event room, and
Hmm.
half of it was set up as the actual event space with like a stage, and all the speakers came, and there was a moderator. And then I had a table on the other side of the room, camera, lights, everything set up on me.
Mm.
And so the event moderator could shoot to me and be like, let's check in with our hyper moderator, Sabrina, to tell us what is happening out there in the world of Twitter,
Mm.
and what questions and feedback and comments are coming in on Slido,
Mm.
because they were using Slido to get
Okay.
all the engagement and comments and chat. They were using
Hmm.
Slido, and they were also trying to get people to engage and send their questions and all of that on Twitter as well.
Okay.
So what I was having to do was that I was monitoring the Twitter feed. I was monitoring the Slido to make sure that so number one, with Twitter, I was selecting the tweets and sending them to the production team, who
Hmm.
would then repurpose them to put them onto the screen
Hmm.
when they shot to me, so that
Yep.
I could like be like, okay, these tweets have come in, they sound really cool, and then I
Mm.
would read them out,
Yep.
and they would be superimposed onto the screen by the production guys. So I was in the process of monitoring, selecting, and then sending that over via, I think it was WhatsApp. But
Okay.
Slack has been used in
Hmm.
other events.
Yep.
And then I was monitoring Slido and seeing all the questions that were coming in, sending those questions to the client, who was then authorizing the ones that I should be asking, and
Hmm.
then putting them in, accepting them, and then
Yep.
asking the questions to the
Yep.
speakers when I was,
Hmm.
so in a way, again, it's like being that anchor person that you throw to. Um, and I thought it was really interesting because, we talked about this, Jason, a few weeks ago,
Hmm.
this whole idea of being omnipresent
Hmm.
and there being omni-channel
Yep.
events. And this truly was an omni-channel event. It really was
Yep.
about closing that circle of,
Hmm.
how do you make that perfect connection between
Hmm.
your virtual event platform, your what's happening at the actual event, and then what's happening on social media across your channels that you're using to kind of
Yep.
create this perfect
Hmm.
omni-channel event.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. I think I think it's really important. And again, we've talked about this before, but there's so many conversations. We talked about this way at the beginning when just talking about digital marketing in general,
Yeah.
that you need to be. Um, uh, when I'm having a no sleep moment. I need vocab. You need to be monitoring and aware
Yeah.
of all the conversations going on about your personal brand. I think that's what we've talked about.
Correct.
But the same thing happens for your event. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're hosting an event, you have an event going on. If you're not monitoring Twitter, Instagram, if you're streaming to YouTube, YouTube comments, anywhere in the digital space where people are talking about your event, then you're missing out on the conversation. I think the fantastic thing about the hyper moderator position is that you have somebody whose responsibility is scanning the digital space for those
Correct.
conversations, selecting the comments or the questions that are relevant but also interesting, which is a
Hmm.
skill, um, and then communicating that to the actual event.
Yeah.
It's very simple, it's very basic, but so many people are not doing this. And I think the fact that this event that you went to had the foresight to incorporate that position, number one, and then was smart enough to hire you to do that, is great, because I think it's really really important. I mean, could you imagine if all in-person events were like that? I think it'd be really cool that, if there's like
It
a
would be so
screen
cool.
somewhere in the room that was just dropping some of the top Twitter posts about the event that are going on. If you're at a football game and I don't know a celebrity is tweeting about the football game, and you're in the stadium, and I don't know on the screen, um, there's tweets coming up from the celebrities that are tweeting about the game. I don't know, but continuing to find ways to make the bridge, that bridge that we keep talking about, is so important, and it's ignored so often.
Yeah.
There's physical and there's digital, and we need people and processes that continue to reinforce the bridge between the two spaces.
And I think that's what's really important. Like, we've seen so many events, in person and virtual, where you can see the Twitter feed coming up. You
Hmm.
can see
Hmm.
what they're sharing on stories, and
Hmm.
that kind of, but you know what's missing? A human being.
The curation, it's
The
curation.
curation is
Yeah.
missing,
Hmm.
and I think that was really what was kind of like the cherry on top of the cake
Yeah.
of the Sunday, was the fact that, as I was there physically embodying
Hmm.
the activity that was happening and relaying that
Yeah.
back, to the hyper moderator, to the moderator,
Yep.
which just brought a different level of, or it made it this different level of dynamic, brought a different level of dynamic to the
Hmm.
to the event. Which is what the client at the end of the day said. He said, it was so nice to see not just always that focus on the moderator, but that there was
Hmm.
this you know, there was this a variety of like going from him to me,
Hmm.
and then we had this really cool vibe.
Yeah.
And that's also very important. You need to make sure you find two moderators that get along with each other, and you've
Yeah.
got that vibe and that energy, because
Definitely.
at the end of the day, you are bringing together different personalities, and if they
Mhm.
don't fit,
Yep.
that's gonna just explode in your event's face. So it's super,
Definitely.
super important to make sure you pick people that can gel well together,
Yeah.
that can vibe off each other, and it creates a whole different nice energy.
Hmm.
This is super important for any kind of event moderation. I know in the virtual event moderation space, when I did Swap Cards Evolve 2.0 last year,
Hmm.
I had Will and I had
Hmm.
Sean, and
Hmm.
it was amazing. It was like the Three Musketeers, and we were
Hmm.
vibing off each other, and people loved it. People
Yeah.
were talking so much about the three of us and how we were
Hmm.
moderating, and how that just brought a whole different level of energy to the event that is memorable.
Yeah.
You're embodying values. You're embodying what your event is supposed
Yeah.
to deliver, but in human
Hmm.
form. And I think that's
Yeah.
so important that with hyper moderation, you have the opportunity going forward in the future with your events to give life
Hmm.
to what's happening online. And
Yeah.
that is a powerful, powerful thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's a great way of putting it. You're bringing your you need somebody that is engaging but also has this ability to curate, which is a skill that's it's really undervalued. So much information online now that I mean, curation is kind of the next creation because we need people who understand what is interesting, what's important, what conversations need to be brought out,
Yeah.
um, and then putting that out and making that connection, bringing it to real life like you were doing. So it's yeah, it's a cool evolution and a necessary evolution of the moderator role.
I think absolutely. For any
Mm.
kind of in person events that are happening, I think that the future should be that you do have a hyper
Mm.
moderator coming together to kind of be the bridge and marry both worlds,
Mhm.
because you can't put that kind of pressure on an actual in-person event moderator
Mm.
or MC who's going to be on a stage
Mhm.
talking to an in-person audience, and then say, okay, whilst you're doing that, or even a virtual event moderator,
Yeah.
whilst you're doing that, you're going to have to be scanning Twitter, picking out tweets, or
No.
we're going to send you these tweets and then you read them out. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's not the same, is it?
Yeah. No.
So
No,
I think,
there's no context. So
yeah,
they're just getting it and reading this thing. There's no context behind it. And if you're really speaking, if you're really trying to engage your audience and focus on the things that you're saying, you don't have time to do good curation. You can't sit there be analyzing the Twitter feed or the Instagrams. I think it requires a dedicated role.
absolutely. And I
Mm.
think that's the future, isn't it? And
Yeah. Yeah.
virtual event moderation is only going to evolve. If you're interested in that space, there is lots of things that you have to keep in mind, and tech you have to kind of learn about.
Mm.
And also from a producer perspective, you're going to have to understand what do they need to do their job best.
Mm.
And as an actual virtual event moderator, how can you connect with the people, and the content,
Mm.
and prep yourself best so that you do the best kind
Yep.
of job.
Mm.
And then hybrid is hybrid. Hybrid is kind of
Mm.
like, let's go, take it with the flow. What's going to happen? You just got to
Mm.
deliver between the two spaces and
Mhm.
understand what's important to relay from the in-person audience,
Mhm.
understand what's important to relay to the virtual audience,
Mhm.
and then marry the two,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
different skill set all on its own as well. So
Yeah, so I mean that's a good, and I know we're running way over, but you know what? I was late today, so uh I'm not going to complain. The I think I asked you this before, but I think it's worth bringing up because I think
yeah.
probably a common question from this conversation will be, okay, so what's the difference then between a hyper moderator and a hybrid moderator? What would you say the defining differences are between those two roles?
People.
Mm.
So, a hybrid moderator means that I am actually physically within an in person audience and engaging with an in-person audience.
Visible on the stage in the
Exactly.
room.
I'm
You're in
visible
the
on the
room. Okay.
stage. I could be anywhere. I could be in the
Mhm.
metaverse, but I could also be in the audience. I'm
Yeah.
kind of living my both
Mhm.
best
Yeah.
lives, right? At an event.
Uh-huh.
Whereas with hyper, you're not in a physical
Mm.
audience. You're not with an
Right.
in-person audience. You're not on the virtual stage either. You're not
Right.
in the metaverse either. You're
Mm.
literally sat on your own island,
Right.
kind of filtering and
Mhm.
how do you say it,
Yeah.
multitasking to
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of relay all the activity back to
Mhm.
those two variations.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
whether it's it could even this could be something that it doesn't even have to be a virtual event. It could just be an in-person conference,
Mhm.
where it obviously works better when you have a virtual feed and you're broadcasting out,
Mhm.
because it's a nice dynamic to give to people that are tuning in. But
Mm.
in an in-person event, hyper moderation is a lot of like giving voice to what's happening on the social media channels. And it could be you running around the event, you
Mm.
know, and doing little video clips, and there's LED screens everywhere, and
Mm.
you're interviewing different people, and you're reading out tweets that are coming in, and
Mhm.
and that could be a version of hyper moderation at an in-person
Mm.
event,
Mm.
because you're bringing what's
Mm.
happening online to life. So,
Mm.
there's so
Yeah.
many ways this could evolve,
Yeah.
and the
So
potential, I think, is fantastic.
so would you say like a hyper moderator, their main responsibility is curating content that is being created outside of the actual event about the event and bringing that to light? So what
Also in the event. So, if
right,
people are
but
using
I mean
integration
not in
tools,
yeah, yeah.
like
When I say
Slido, for
outside of the event,
example,
yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
in,
When
yeah,
I
tools and channels that are not part of the main
the stage, let's say
platform.
like the main stage, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Then yes, yeah, that's that I would say that's a good definition
Mhm.
of what hyper moderation
Right.
is. You're in the hyperspace.
Right.
I
Because
don't know
well,
what
because
hyperspace.
so let's say this. All right. I think we're we're defining as we go. This is awesome. We're
Yeah,
trying to do this on the fly. So like so hybrid moderator would be involved with the main stage and the speakers and things, whereas
yeah,
the hybrid would, whereas the hyper is actually involved with everything that's happening off of the main stage, the
correct.
conversations and content that's going on off of the main stage, and trying to
In the
bring
online
that
space,
to the
exactly,
forefront.
exactly.
Nice. I think
There
we
we
got it.
go. We've defined it. We've defined it. Right? So
Nice.
that kind of has been our evolution of
Mm,
event moderation,
yeah.
which I would say has just been, oh gosh, like light speed in the last two
Mm,
years.
yeah.
But I think that these are all different forms of moderation that are going to continue to evolve.
Hmm.
They're going to continue to create work and
Hmm.
employment for
Hmm.
individuals.
Yep.
This could be, if you are good at being in front of a camera, at multitasking, at presenting, and wanting to do that, then
Mm,
explore it, find out more
yeah.
about it, because I don't
Yeah.
think the demand for it is going to go
Mm.
down. If anything, it's going to get more.
I
So
think it has to increase. Yeah, I mean, you see the amount of investment that's going into the virtual platforms. Um, Hubelo just got a major investment. The virtual space, the virtual presentation, the streaming, it's not going away. And I think the
yeah,
coolest thing is that if somebody wants to dip their toes into this, I mean, first of all, reach out to Sabrina and I. Like, we're super happy to speak to anybody about this topic.
absolutely.
Um, and but the second thing is that there's so many opportunities to practice. So
Yeah,
I mean, host a Twitter space, right? That's easy. You can do it. It's literally a click on your phone and you
yeah,
can host a Twitter space.
yeah.
You can
Host
do
an IG
streaming,
live,
host an IG live, exactly, same thing.
host a Facebook
um,
live, host
Host a
any
Facebook
live,
live,
really, on
host any
any
live,
channel.
exactly. And really even streaming to YouTube now is so easy. So there's lots of opportunities. Don't be discouraged if there's two people in the audience or one person in the audience. I think the important thing is taking that first step to put yourself out there, to start
Yeah.
practicing, to start kind of like sharpening your knife, so to speak, right? Like
Yeah.
the more that you do, the more that you do this, the more that you're on camera, the more that you're doing the lives, the easier it gets. So yeah, I'm excited to see which other moderators start to come out, and we can start a club.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're still a very small fish in big pond. So
Mm,
take the opportunity. No,
yeah.
we are a big fish in a small pond. Isn't that what I meant? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, big fish, small pond. Yeah,
There's
and
there's
but
there's a
that pond's gonna grow.
yeah,
So
exactly,
we're excited
exactly.
to meet more fish.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way,
exactly,
and
exactly.
and move forward with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was our talk today. Thank you for joining us. Again, we hit the double 40-minute mark of 20 minutes event
two, two for one, 2 for 1. There's
Good
so much
to
value.
see we're consistent. You know what I mean? Like it's about consistency.
That's right.
Um, but yeah, we'll be back next week. um we will think about what the topic's going to be next week. If you have
Mhm.
anything that you want us to talk about, specifically within the events industry to do with the Eventprofs world, we'll definitely be recapping everything that's happening within the space of events. If you are a supplier and you're interested in being part of the 20 Minutes Eventprofs weekly live, um, either as a sponsor or you want to join us and have a conversation about something in particular, then reach out to us, because
Yep.
we obviously do this every week live. And yeah, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. Thank you for your patience and for waiting for me.
will do. And we will catch all of you next week. So until then, take care and bye bye.
Speak